Pure Drive. Thank you very much. But anyways, 34 minutes after 6, still driving home safely on the most exciting late afternoon radio show. Well, just like I told you, and then instead of say trending news, we talk about mental health. Now, Obekai say on Wednesday, matters of the heart. I realized that boys, they really want to share, but some think is normal. People feel say mental health is only applicable to people walking on the streets and all of that. Today, we're blessed to have Dr. Theodore Apraku, who is a psychiatrist from Recovery Pathways. We should be doing this frequently. About the mental health. Now, question am I right to say, anyway, welcome, doctor.
Thank you. Thank you very much.
Am I right? Me right say make us mental health. Adrimu yare. Can I say that?
Yes.
Okay. Into what questions be afa adwene no ni adwimu yare ne saying awkward feelings that you have or saying questions, mind-boggling questions. Fanina Bra on Twitter, join the hashtag Pure Drive and we will ask our expert for you. Once again, welcome Dr. Apraku.
Thank you.
Mental health. Often not spoken about too much. Anytime we talk about mental health, people feel about sebi, about downfall. Omomonam, Kwanwo, and no me yom, honey winner, sebi omajin, atochima. But mental health, Ankasa, what is it?
So, thank you very much, and a very good evening to your listeners. So, when we talk about mental health, we are talking about a person being in a condition where they are able to perform to their utmost best, where they are able to realize their dreams, and they are not held back by any disease or condition that is coming from the mind. This is very important because, like you said, many people think that when we talk about mental health, we are talking about the people who are walking on the streets naked. But actually, that is not it. There are many mental health conditions. For instance, we have more mental health conditions than we have cardiovascular conditions.
Really?
Yes, so the conditions that can affect your mind are actually more than the ones that can affect your heart.
Wow.
But we tend to not pay attention to them, usually because we don't understand them. And then sometimes because of some beliefs that we have. Like some people think that they are spiritual. But the same way that, for instance, malaria is not spiritual, it's the same way that when someone has depression, it's not spiritual.
Yeah.
Yes. And so May is Mental Health Awareness Month.
Yeah.
And so we at RP, Recovery Pathways Clinic, we made it a point to come out here and then talk to people about mental health conditions. Yes.
Common amongst them that everybody says is depression. And often not, or sometimes people mention anxiety. Depression, first of all, is it real, or is just something people create, or is just a fancy tag that people move along with?
Okay, thank you. So, depression, anxiety is the most common. Although depression is the one that everybody knows, anxiety is the most common. Anxiety affects about 1 in 4 people every year. It's just that the prognosis is quite good. The chances of you recovering totally from it are quite good, and so it doesn't stay for long.
Recovery is the prognosis, you're saying?
Yes, the chances of getting back to your previous state of health. Yeah, and depression is also quite common. So depression is a mood disorder.
Mood disorder.
Yes. So when we talk about mood, we are talking about how a person feels inside. It's your subjective feeling of how you are feeling inside. So you may be feeling happy, you may be feeling anxious, you may be feeling sad, you may be feeling angry. So usually your mood we say it's reactive. It reacts to what goes on around you. So let's say Monday morning you wake up and you remember that you have to go to work after a weekend of chilling. So there you internally you feel a bit down.
Yeah.
And then you remember that actually you blew all your money over the weekend.
Yeah.
That makes you feel more down. But then you remember that, okay, you're going to work, you meet a friend, or you remember some good thing that you're looking forward to, and that cheers you up a bit. And then maybe you sit in the trotro, and the mate says something annoying, that gets you angry. Someone says something funny, and that makes you laugh, gets you happy. So you see that as you go along the day, your mood changes. And that is how a normal mood is. But we say you have a mood disorder when your mood is static. It is staying in one place regardless of what is going on around you. So in depression, someone has a sad mood.
Okay.
And the sad mood persists. Most times of the day, they are just sad. They may have a cause, or they may not be able to identify any cause for it. So for most times of the day, and it continues for about a week to 2 weeks. And then we say that person is depressed.
So depression doesn't, how long should it actually last? Or how long does it last?
2 weeks.
So what happens to, so it means you can't be depressed for more than 2 weeks? Usually.
You can. No, like if it's less than 2 weeks, then it's usually not considered depression.
No, for more than 2 weeks.
If it's more than 2 weeks, that's depression. So why we say it should be more than 2 weeks is, let's say something terrible happens at work, or you witness something terrible. It makes you sad. The intensity of that sadness wanes as the day. Let's say this morning you went to school and you got your results and you failed the paper. The sadness that you felt in the morning should not be the same sadness that you feel in the evening. And so we expect that by the 2 weeks, that sadness should have lifted.
Okay.
But if it persists for 2 weeks or more, then we are saying that it's depression.
Wow.
Yeah.
In Ghana, currently, how common is depression?
So currently, depression is the second most common condition that we see in our clinics.
Wow.
Yes.
Health condition?
So RP is a specialist psychiatric clinic.
Okay.
So we specialize in mental health conditions. We do offer general medical care, but then we are especially specialized for mental health conditions. And it is really very common, and it affects all age groups: teenagers, young adults, middle-aged people, elderly. It affects everyone.
Certain repercussions that come, or certain things that accompany depression, includes suicide, withdrawal, and all of that. Sometimes we are not able to differentiate between, or even how do we even differentiate between personal behaviors or personal behavior and depressed people? Because some people may be by nature withdrawn. Does it mean, or does it necessarily mean they've been depressed for a longer period, or that's just how they are?
Okay, so yes, there are people who are naturally withdrawn, who are naturally introverted. That is there. But even in those people, when they become depressed, you feel like, no, this is too much for even an introvert, because you expect a certain level of interaction. Like if you stay with someone who is introverted, who doesn't like being among people, there is a certain level of interaction that you expect. For instance, probably during meal time, they'll come and ask for their food, or when they get back from town, they'll greet everyone before they go inside. Maybe in the evening they'll join the family to watch TV, not necessarily to talk, just to watch TV. But then even for them, you realize that they are more withdrawn than they used to be. So usually the three main symptoms that will tell you is depression. We've talked about sadness. And then the second one is what we call anhedonia. So this is where people do not feel pleasure in things that they used to feel pleasure in. So they, for instance, the easiest example is hobbies. They no longer enjoy their hobbies. So they like watching football or something, and then they no longer enjoy it. So they like to keep to themselves or don't like to go out, or even when they are in the house and the football is on, they don't come out to watch it. And then the third one is that you feel like you don't have energy. So in the morning you don't feel like getting out of bed. When there's a task, you feel like it's too much, when it's probably something that you've been doing every day, but suddenly you don't have like the energy, the strength to just do it. You don't find the motivation and the momentum to get up and do that work. So those three are the very important things. And then, like you said, suicide. So with depression comes something like an inferiority complex. So the person starts questioning their whole existence. Like, what use am I in this world? If I died, it's not going to affect anyone. I'm useless. And then they start thinking, well, maybe if I were dead, that would be better. At least someone might replace me and be a better person than me. And so that goes on, and then sometimes it gets to the point where they feel like, okay, let me just end it. And although this is more common in women, it's more common for women to have suicidal thoughts or attempt suicide, but then unfortunately men die more from suicide.
Men die more from suicide?
Yes, more women attempt, but more men die. And that's because usually when the women attempt suicide, they use non-fatal means. So they use gentle means too. So they may take some pills that they have. By the time the pills get to where they would have killed her, someone might have found her and sent her to the hospital. But for the men, they use things like firearms, so they just shoot themselves. So even if you are outside the room, by the time you get in, you're gone. Yes. And so suicide is really especially terrible when it's in men.
Depression. At what point can one themselves or by themselves determine that they are depressed or identify that they are depressed?
So usually you would notice that you are not able to function at the level that you used to, or you begin struggling. So most of us have a fairly normal routine life, and you realize that things that you've been doing for years, suddenly you find yourself having difficulty coping with completing those things. And then, like I said, no matter what goes on around you, you feel like your life is not complete. Like there is no joy in your life. There is no fulfillment. When someone else looks at your life, they may see you as, say, having a job, going to school, like they may actually envy your position, but you yourself don't see that. And it doesn't matter what stage in life you are. When that thought comes, it can drive you to suicide. And so it doesn't matter. You can have bankers, doctors committing suicide, because the depression makes them believe that their life is worthless, that there's no importance to them. But I mean, whoever you are, if for nothing at all, your mom, your dad, you may have some friends who actually care about you, who miss you and all that.
What could make depression worse? Or what's the and after that, the follow-up to that, what's the worst someone can hit when depressed? So
I mean, the worst is death. So that comes from suicide. That can also come from, there are some people who, when they are depressed, they try to kind of treat it with drugs, because the drugs will give some momentary relief from the sadness.
When you say drugs, is it illicit drugs or
yes?
Those
so they may go in for alcohol. They may go in for alcohol. They may go in for weed, cocaine, chase, rock, those things.
So those things don't make it better?
No, they don't. They just, in a moment you may feel calm. In a moment you may feel like the problems, okay, you are able to forget the problems. But then after the substance wears off, because usually they just last for a short time, at most 6 to 12 hours, then they go away. And so what you realize is that you will need to now keep taking the drug every day, and then as you take it every day, your body adjusts itself to it, and now you need to take more. Because and usually that's how addiction works.
Okay.
So I think if there's time we'll talk about that, right? So the worst that you can have with depression is death. So it can come by suicide, by people refusing to eat, and then by people overdosing on medications, because the medication will give them some relief, and then they keep taking them, increasing their doses.
There's some stigma, or yes, there's some stigma associated with mental health and people who seek psychiatric care. Could this be part of the features or part of the reasons why a lot of people shy away from talking about how they feel emotionally, mentally? Could this be?
Yes. So a lot of people don't really understand when we talk about mental health, and so they think that the only mental, that's why I started by saying that we have more mental health conditions than cardiovascular conditions, because they think that if we say mental health, we are talking about abodam. And so once you go to see a psychiatrist, a psychologist, once you go into any mental health facility, then wabadam. But that is not it. Like I said, there are many conditions, many different conditions, and this is part of the reason why we are doing this education, that people would know that the conditions are many, and you don't have to be shy of coming for treatment. It is better to come for treatment, and because we know that there's a lot of stigma, we provide the utmost privacy to make sure that even sometimes there are people who will come in with a relative, and even the relative will not know what condition brought you there. All we want to do is get you well, so that, because if you don't get well, then the symptoms are going to show for other people to realize that, oh, actually this is what you have, right? And then also for everybody listening who is lucky enough to not have a mental illness, do not look down on people who have mental illnesses. It doesn't mean you are better than them. We have doctors that we see at our clinic. We have bankers, we have lawyers, we have teachers, nurses. So it affects everyone. No one decides that they want to get ill. And it's not anybody's fault that they are in that condition. And so we should not look down on people who get them. And we ourselves, if we get them, we should try as much as possible to get treatment.
I'm going to allow 3 people to ask questions. Miss, minim say all questions, but I don't know if you've got any questions. But before I do that, as depression, today we're focusing on zooming in on depression. Is depression curable?
Yes. So there are many options to treatment. The first is that we have to grade the level or the severity. So when you have mild to moderate depression, what we use usually is what we call psychotherapy. Psychotherapy is where you have sessions with a psychologist, and with the tools that they have, they look into the things that caused the depression, the things that are making the depression stay. We call it the perpetuating factors, the things that are helping it to stay or making it worse. And then the things that you yourself are doing that are not helping, because sometimes it is just how we think or your personality. You know, there are some people who are they catastrophize everything. It's like when they hear any news, the way they will scream, the way they will shout. So they help you with all of these things to help you come out of your depression. So that's psychotherapy. The other thing is we have medications that we use for treating depression. And usually when you have moderate to severe depression, we do psychotherapy and then medication. And there are many classes of the medication depending on your needs. There are people who would have difficulty sleeping when they are depressed.
Yeah.
So we have drugs that will help you sleep and then cure your depression. There are people who sleep too much when they are depressed. So we have drugs that will prevent you from sleeping and will cure your depression. Then those who are obese, we have drugs that will help you, will not worsen your obesity.
So depression leads to obesity.
It depends on sometimes yes. It not necessarily obesity, but weight gain.
Okay.
So within a month, you gain like 5 kilograms of weight, unintentional. Yes, sometimes it can happen in depression.
Depression is a very broad topic, and I really feel when it gets personal, that's when we get to really assess it well. Look, I'm giving a chance for 3 callers to come in on 0240-929283, 0240-929256. I've got a lot of callers coming in, and so Dr. Apraku is over here and going to answer your questions. Hello.
Hello, Kuzibo.
Yes, sir. You're from saying?
When you're feeling
Sim 2. Okay, whiskey. Dr. Apraku, if you've got any questions, what questions be a bisano on depression?
Well, like, this kind of person depression, I did be a boy, anytime I do go through that, you consult a medical personnel and cannot. And for example, because about I remember way back, no more teachers. I lost my mom way back in GHS, education, the behavior program got like, you register, you don't tell me, you just fees, I'm going to be able to make a case, but I had been, you register a time of possible, then time I was going through some serious and terrible situations, Let me fully say, the life on I days, you mean, but I go to a time in meeting to be by. Trust me, say right now, no. Things are going well. Make sure you be a point be a baby. I'm just about. And your power, why are they?
May I say, Doc, you heard him. I mean, that confirms the suicidal part, where he lost his mom. He felt like the world had ended, and so he wanted to end it all. Let's listen to our second call. Hello.
Hello.
Yes, sir.
Yeah. Senator.
Yes, sir.
Paul, you, madam.
Nice, Paul. Doctor, what question be a BBC?
What about those guys who go through some breakups in relationships? If such situation happens, what should be the right channel for them to follow? Because it's also part of psychological trauma and those types. So I want to find out if someone gets break up in a relationship, what should be the right channel?
Okay, should I answer?
Yes, he needs an answer.
So, Paul, thank you very much. I want to say, life comes with a lot of challenges. Not just breakups. So sometimes your loved one could die. Sometimes you could lose your job. Maybe major exams be now failure. Not just say, now, usually we are able to cope with such stresses, but sometimes it becomes so bad. Like the effects in you so bad, say it can tip us into a depression. Okay. Yeah, here say also be like the people around you should be people who are able to encourage you, people who are able to lift you up when you are down. If you hand enough for one in China, say at the public the way they talk about it, you would think say they are criticizing you. I know Obi or Tony sorry now, or Tony sorry, and the best friend in China say, hey, and then media. It's like I say, criticize. So you need people who are able to lift you when you are down, and also when you find that the stress is too much that you cannot cope, just walk into any mental health facility. And now in Kumasi, every big hospital has it. But you can also come to recovery. Yeah, they are specialized in that, and we have all sorts of personnel. We have psychiatrists, psychologists. We have counselors, we have pastors, we have occupational therapists, dietitians, and then when you get professional help, we are able to help you go through it and then provide you with tools that next time you know how to deal with it, because life is full of ups and downs and they will always come, so we should always be prepared for them.
I have a typical experience which affirm what you are saying, because I remember when I was writing my final exams,
and Lagos University of Ghana. I went through such situation, and it took a servant, a godly servant, to bear with me and that time, and then she advised me a lot of stuff concerned about those things, and that really helped me, and I was able to take my final exams, and now I'm living normal. So I think that it affects what you are saying. So you need company when someone found himself in such.
Well, thank you. We would have to continue this on Wednesday. Unfortunately, I can't pick no more calls, but obviously, Wednesday we're doing this again, Doctor. Wednesday we're doing this again, and thank you very much for coming through. But briefly, before you go, in case anyone wants to get in touch, via social media, phone, text, anyways, how did you do that?
So, like I said, we are at Recovery Pathways. You can locate us at Asafo YF Junction. We are on the same lane as Tobinco. Our phone lines are 0208 849291. 0208 849291. You can just search for Recovery Pathways on the Google map, and you'll get our location. Yes. So
thank you very much for coming through, Dr. Apraku from Recovery Pathways. May is Mental Health Awareness Month, so we're going to be bringing you a lot of these things to psych you up, to let you aware of certain mental conditions. Yeah. Thank you very much for coming through, Doc. And hopefully Wednesday we're doing